Okay, we're going to call to order the regular city council meeting of September 28, 2020. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Here.
Bavacqua,
Here.
Albrecht,
Here.
Harrison,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Sage,
Here.
Salvia.
Here.
Thank you. Now I'm going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Actually, that felt kind of pressurized there to
Imagine singing the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah,
Right.
Oh, I better not get that wrong. Actually, I have a public comment, scheduled and non-scheduled presentation. So first, we're going to go to the holiday update from the Downtown Development Authority. Christy Chavarro. Christy, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So we do have a few items later in the agenda, but in speaking with City Manager Wing, he thought it would be advisable for us to come and give you an update on the overall calendar because there's many promotions and smaller things that we do that don't necessarily come to Council as an approval item. So I just want to give you a brief update on those items, and then a few other things we'll be covering later in the agenda, but certainly I can answer questions about anything that you might have. So kicking off first is always the big one, Big Bright Light Show. So while we will not be able to do it with Lanyap this year, lights have started going up. I don't know if you've already seen them downtown, but they did get an early start. We're hoping to possibly get the lights on a little bit earlier to give the merchants more of a boost because they do a nice amount of business with the lights on. And so we're trying to give them more days of that. And we'll keep you posted on how that's going. So we were able to start a week earlier on that. But unfortunately, Lanyap with social gathering and social distancing, what it is right now, unfortunately, that is not going to be an event that we're going to be able to have, which is disappointing, but we completely understand that. However, also in celebration of the holidays, we have several other things planned, including our Festival of Trees, which I was just chatting with Councilmember Albrecht about before we hopped onto the meeting. So we are still doing our Festival of Trees. However, we've had to relocate and reimagine our event. Typically, it's at the Rochester Community House, which we love being able to do our event at the house, but unfortunately with the gathering guidelines, we're not able to put as many people into that building at a time as we would need to for the cocktail preview. So, and as many of you know, this is our largest fundraising event for the Big Bright Light Show. So with everything going on as it is, we had an opportunity present itself with one of our committee members who happens to be Sue Keels, general manager of the Royal Park Hotel. So we are going to be relocating the Festival of Trees to the Royal Park Hotel, utilizing their outdoor venues, their wedding pavilion and their terrace. I know that there were some new government guidelines from the governor that came out on Friday, and so we're still analyzing exactly how and if it would impact our festival. But as of right now, we are still planning on using the outdoor venues, and we're very excited for the opportunity. So we're calling it's Festival Al Fresco. I'm telling people instead of cocktail, it's going to be Christmas cozy, so bundle up because you'll be outside for a little bit, but it's giving us some more opportunities to also partner with the hotel and some additional fundraising opportunities through that. So that's coming up November 20th through the 22nd. We are still participating with Small Business Saturday. That is a promotion that we do downtown. We won't be doing the carriage rides, but we will be doing the promotion within the businesses as we do every year. We also are adding this year, I don't know if anyone has heard of Plaid Friday, but apparently this started with people that wanted to combat the Black Friday national shopping, big box shopping kind of thing. And they started with Plaid Friday. And so they encourage people to wear plaid and take selfies with plaid and do different things with plaid while they're shopping downtown. Our Business Development Committee did a survey with our businesses last year, and many of the businesses were reporting that Black Friday was actually as good as Small Business Saturday, if not better. And so we decided to put those two together as a promotion. We're also going to be doing a selfie contest, but I don't know if you can see this could be reversed. It's an Elfie contest. Get it? So we're going to be having elves, special elves that'll be in the stores that'll be hiding, that if you can find a selfie and take a picture with them, and then you'll be entered to win a drawing. So just trying to mix it up and keep things interesting and, of course, keep things safe. One of the items that's on your agenda later tonight is consideration of the Kris Kringle Market. specifically the relocation of it. As many people who have attended Kris Kringle in the past know that it is a very popular event and it's a very crowded event. And so while markets are allowed and something that we've gotten very adept at planning in this COVID-19 atmosphere with the farmers market and our Thursday night markets, so we know exactly how to do it appropriately and safely. 4th Street isn't a great venue for that. So our request later tonight will be discussing actually the relocation of that event to the east parking platforms, that we would better be able to control our crowds and our attendance. And I'll be able to explain later on what that looks like. But we're still hoping to do that the very first weekend in December. And then last but not least is Caroling in the City. That one is just on pause. We don't quite know where we're going to be in December. And so in speaking with Chief Schettenhelm, he said, let's just kind of hold off and keep waiting and see what that looks like. Because as you know, we're able to close Main Street. That's a really big area. And we could absolutely social distance, but we're just waiting to see exactly what things look like, because we're always walking that line between could and should. So nothing on Caroling for sure yet, but other than that, that's what we have planned for the holidays. And I will certainly be happy to answer any questions. And then I'll be sticking around for the second part of the agenda, talking about Halloween and the Kris Kringle Market.
Council, any questions for Christy? Okay, thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. Next, we're going to go on to public comment. I think we have 2 calls in, so why don't we go with the one that ends with 719? You can unmute.
Please hit *6 to unmute your phone.
So the call with the phone number was 719. Hit *6 and it will unmute your phone. Give that a try. There you go.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm calling to let you know how I feel about the riverfront development and the developments in Rochester.
Okay.
The short little speech. I live on Beach and Rent.
Oh yeah. Can we get your name and address first, please?
Sure. My name is Doug Hain, and 701 Renshaw Street.
Doug, welcome.
Thank you. I live on Peach and Renshaw, 2 blocks north of the Sanctuary development, which is by Peach and Hellman Street. The Sanctuary development started in earnest in 2016 when they began filling in the wetlands back there for 20 homes. All of the concerns voiced by the council to the council by the local residents before it started about increased traffic from construction equipment, work crews, residents moving in, big increases in noise, traffic violations, and incidentally, just recently, a Scopgy heating and cooling truck regularly blows a stop sign by my house. I mean, no brake lights even. The city downplayed all of this, but it is all coming true. Peach Street has become a go-to entry and exit thoroughfare for all the traffic from the sanctuary. So for 4 years now, we've got all the construction traffic, residents, the driving age kids that are now moving in with their parents, and all the Amazon Prime truck in and out. We were promised a traffic study and it never materialized. And the sanctuary, by the way, is only about half done. So I hate it. So because the riverfront development has 100+ units and this traffic is going to punch through to Campbell Street in the neighborhood, which is a very quiet part of town, I'm sure all the residents on Campbell Street, Heil, and Fraser Streets are going to just love that traffic. So now there's this 5-story building that if you're walking on the sidewalk on First or Diversion Street, you can put your hand out, and if you're on the sidewalk, you can touch this monolith. Now, if you don't think there's going to be too much traffic there, there's at least 2 other developments. I believe it's Blossom Mills and the Overlook in the immediate area. So also in the immediate area is the vacant Van Horn concrete property adjacent to the riverfront development, which is a large piece of vacant property. I remember in the 1980s, we had a rainstorm. A lot of rain came down. After the water overran the banks of the river, the Van Horn property, at the Van Horn property, I remember seeing a very impressive sight. The only part of the diesel trucks that were parked next to the building that were visible were the chrome air horns on the top of the truck. So if you're planning on sticking anything there, make sure it's anchored to the ground well. And of the last things that I have to say is, I was looking through the master plan for Rochester that was drawn up in 2014, and there were several areas in it that talked about how important and valuable trees, green spaces, woods, and wetlands were to adding value to the homes nearby. There were actual dollar amounts added to the property if near each one of these spaces. And so I guess with all this development that's going up, I guess that whole concept has fallen by the wayside. There's still time to look at, I know it's not a tax base for you guys. There's still time to look at a green space, a park, an additional park. So basically, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, now we have the call 202 number, so hit *6 to unmute yourself. Last 3 digits. There you go. Welcome. Name?
Well, Patricia Kane, 817 West 4th Street, Rochester.
All right, Pat,
I'm doing great tonight, thanks. Got in from work, and it's like, thank God, home. So about 3 things. First of all, I think I did discuss with a couple of people, but we had I was inadvertently and unexpectedly interviewed by NBC News at the park on Saturday around 4 o'clock, between 4 and 4:30. And everything had to stop, the filming, the interview, the mics, because the Rochester pedal ride came through filled with people screaming. They came down a driveway, not a road, a driveway, around the back of our city office and police station, around all the parking, disrupted people who came to the park for nature, for quiet, people that were fishing. They disrupted a tennis game and they never shut up. So why people think they have to scream and yell the whole time they're on this is beyond me. They then proceeded through residential. So we had to wait quite a while before they began and picked up the interview again because of the noise. And they asked me, what was this? They were in awe. I told them, talk to the city. A little while ago, Mayor Bixen, at the meeting, you even mentioned that they were supposed to stay out of part of contingents of their operations. They'd stay out of our park. They wouldn't use our park to make turnarounds, and they wouldn't be in residential, and they're doing it. And I guess I will say this. The DDA wanted them and endorsed them, wholeheartedly wanted them. The park is not the DDA, and neither is residential. I think we should keep that very noisy, screaming adults that happen to like this in the downtown, and perhaps if they were parked by the dining that's outdoors or the storefronts, there'd be a little bit different take on it. But it was very disruptive to the people that got out on a beautiful late afternoon to have to listen to adults that never stopped screaming. And it's not a tour, and I'm not going to buy that by this operation that they're touring in Rochester, because if it's a tour, someone is telling you about the significance of what you're looking at. You couldn't hear anything on that, which means you'd be quiet, and these people were screaming. So I thought it was a little bit embarrassing, really, for our city, especially during COVID. I understand 15 people can fit on that pedal bike. It was filled. I don't know how many they had. I just know the one back seat wasn't taken. That's all I could tell you. But I would appreciate it if that is addressed properly, and let's keep it in the DDA. It's bar hopping, because when you look at their site, it's all about that and how to use one credit card and not 15 for the bars, because it'll be quicker so you can get to the next bar. Okay, aside from that, there's something coming up very shortly on our agendas, I noticed, which is healthcare. And I have a little problem from kind of what I've heard, and it just lead me in the right direction. There may be switches, I guess, from Blue Cross to Aetna or Meritain, and I'm concerned because I don't know why anybody would want to switch insurances now, especially with a pandemic going on, and healthcare, you wanting it to be as accessible and as least stressful as possible. And just to give you a little bit of information, Aetna is owned by CVS. CVS Pharmacy owns them. And that's after Aetna bought Cofinity. And there was a lot of problems with these mergers and buyouts, because being in the healthcare field, I certainly saw a whole lot of it, and even had to redo some contracts back when. And quite frankly, CVS is a pharmacy. So when they own an insurance company, they're doing one thing, and that's to direct some business. Aetna cannot process claims. Meritain can. Meritain does. And of course, they're going to get a cut for processing claims. But here's my problem. Blue Cross Blue Shield has the most in reserve, is the most solid financially of the company. Aetna, I'm questioning. You can't even get the numbers of how many are insured by this in Michigan. But I can tell you right now how many are insured by Blue Cross Blue Shield. But when you compare them, I think Council should know this. The number one insurer in Michigan happens to be Blue Cross Blue Shield with 67% of the market and the revenues. Aetna and Meritain don't even come in at all in that rating. Next, HMOs. Again, your Blue Cross products rank at 50-some%. Again, Aetna and Meritain aren't mentioned. They are so insignificant. They don't have the cash. They don't have the base, which means access may be limited. Now, when you get into the PPOs, finally, they show up with only a 7% market share based on a market share of 78% by Blue Cross Blue Shield. So you can't just look at dollars because there's not a whole lot of savings. So I'm wondering, is it possible, with permission, I could perhaps talk to Anthony or someone about these real numbers? I have concerns, and I'll tell you why. First responders, and as well as our city employees, we need to take care of them. I think in this climate, even more so, we've wasted and spent a lot of money and didn't bat an eye. We did it when we decided what we're going to do without any votes from people or the taxpayers. We pay the bills. We did it when we settled lawsuits that didn't really have to happen and paid out $1-2 million. I don't believe at this point that our first responders need this at this time. Anybody does. And I'm a little bit concerned because it's coming up so fast and I can't quite get a handle on the numbers. So I'd like to get more information before this comes up. And maybe even because of the pandemic, maybe this is something we need to push a little aside. I understand there's a shortfall for the deck for maintenance of maybe $900 or $1.2 million, but that's not anyone's fault. That deck should have been owned and that should have been just capital improvement for one area only. Okay. As taxpayers, we're liable, of course, because we hold them as, I hate to use the word loan, but we do. Next, I understand we're going to have to probably look at some millage to help in another area. And I will tell you right now, the consensus is people don't mind that when it's a first responder. That's something we'll take care of. So I'd like kind of that to be looked into or set aside a little more than October 12th, because many of us can't get the information we would like. We pay the bills. Regardless, we are responsible. We're the taxpayers. So we're not in the decision-making capacity. We understand that. Many times we have no say, but this time I think we kind of need to have a little handle on this. I was kind of surprised because access and quality are two of the biggest items that should not be a shortfall. That's all I've got. So I'm going to say good night.
Thank you, Pat.
Fair enough? Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'd just say that beer truck did promise they'd stay out of the park and stay out of the residential areas. And obviously they don't do that. So that's something the city administration, I think, needs to take a look at. Next is next is approval of the minutes. Is consideration of the minutes of the special meeting of September 10th, 2020.
Your Honor,
Yes.
council does not have the minutes from this last meeting.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sorry.
We will push that to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Just reading the script. Sorry there. Next is approval of the consent agenda is a request for approval of transfer of smart municipal credits and community credits. And next B is review of the current special event calendar.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson.
Support.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Second by Councilmember Albrecht. Discussion. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. There's no old business or table items tonight. There are no public hearings. Under legislative deliberation, A is first reading and introduction of establishing the pension bond trust. Mr. City Manager?
Actually, as council might recall, I stepped out on this one, so Anthony and Nick are able to talk about this item.
Anthony, whichever. Anthony?
Yeah, sure thing. Happy to take that one. I left council in the packet a very detailed memo. For everyone that's just tuning in, I'll just give a super brief summary. If you've been following along, council's approved doing a pension bond for the up to 95% is what the state allows for the pension bond. What the ask is in the summary is to be able to take those proceeds and invest them like we do with our OPEB assets. So instead of writing MERS a lump sum $8 million check and sending it to them immediately, we'd like to phase it into them. It is still legally restricted for pension. The interest, the proceeds, nothing can be used except for the pension. But we would establish the OPEB trust, which would be done through Morgan Stanley. And then the retirement board would be in charge of overseeing the investments, just as they do with the OPEB benefits. There's still, if council approves, Treasury still has to approve it through the state. They can still say no, we don't want you to do that. That can still happen, but that's where we are right now. Just to follow along with the timing, we're looking at still mid-October for the bond. We're waiting on that last review from Treasury. Well, we're hoping to be the last review. And with that, I'll happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Thank you, Mayor. Anthony and Marcy have done a very good job of educating us on the Budget and Expense Committee. We went over this a week and a half ago, and I think it's analogous to what I do with my 401k plan at my company. You have one firm that handles the investments, who are, in this case, that would be Morgan Stanley. Then you have a TPA, or what's called a third-party administrator, that administers the payments. We don't want to change the third-party administrator because, the retirees are used to that check or direct deposit or whatever coming from that group. However, we feel that Morgan Stanley could do a better job of managing our money on behalf of our retirees, much like those of you, listening or on council who have 401ks at your current employers. So with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion to approve the investment plan establishing a qualified trust with Morgan Stanley and starting the process for the required ordinance amendment changes.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Albrecht, support by Councilmember Peterson. Further discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is a report in the regular business City Hall vestibule project update. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So just, I think it was noted I think 2 meetings ago that our Planning Commission did approve the vestibule project. However, since that time, the proposals came back and they were over the amount that we have allocated for this using the community development block grants. We've talked with the county who oversees the federal dollars, and we would be able to apply this December's amount to the 2019 dollars, which should cover the majority of this project. So as we're entering really the fall or the season that it would be challenging to actually modify our front entrance, this December, we'll see what those dollars are. Typically, they've been between $26,000 and $28,000. We would then combine that with the $28,000 and change that we've already set aside for the vestibule and be able to do this work this upcoming spring. So that's the update. Right now, the bids came back higher than we were hoping, and we're not able to really just do part of the project, the full project, which would require the cement work for the ADA component as well as the prefab structure to be built. in the council packet on page, my memo is on page 21, but on page 22, the planner does a nice job, reviewing the overall project. And then there are several visual aids, I'll say, kind of renderings of what the structure that was approved by the Planning Commission would look like. And after December, we'd be able to talk about a timeline for the spring construction if the numbers come back what we're expecting.
Thank you, Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, given the combination of those two funding sources, what's the shortfall then that would be required, and where do those funds? Is that from the general fund, or is there contingency on your side?
So it will depend on what the actual project comes in at. If our estimate was around $50,000. So if the prefab building is around, buying it directly from the manufacturer is about 20,000. So if the construction work and attaching it to the building, we're hopeful that the community block grant will cover all, if not the majority of the cost. Using our engineers, there might be maybe $5,000 to $10,000 difference based on the proposals that we received just recently. Don't know what the market will look like this upcoming spring.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Councilmember Peterson.
No, just a comment. I just want to say thanks for pushing this out. I think it's important that we don't do this at this time either. So that's good to hear tonight. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next is the 2020 community survey update, Mr. City Manager.
Jane actually is overseeing this project with one of our interns. So if you don't mind, I'll have her actually speak.
All right, Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have started the community survey for the 2020. This is following up on the 2017 community survey where Drew Benson, a former intern, kind of headed that project up and based it off of the 2009 ICMA project. So these questions that we're working off of are based off the 2017, and we'll be able to compare and contrast kind of where our community has grown and what people's sentiments might have changed. And then additionally, we're working with our master plan firm, Beckett and Rader, to include their master plan survey questions. So it's kind of a two birds, one stone, as that's a big part of their planning process, I believe. We plan to send every single resident in the city a copy of the survey and include information about it in the upcoming newsletters. The survey is to go out in December with the response window being open until February. And then people will be able to fill out the paper surveys that are sent to them and send them back in a prepaid envelope or drop them off at City Hall. Or additionally, they can complete the survey electronically using a code that is printed on the survey. So our intern, Lauren DeVukai, she has been working on the coding process and making sure that all the codes are assigned. And then we're working with staff to finalize our questions and further develop our questions, as well as welcoming council input. You should have received a preliminary draft in the communication last week from me. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jane, thank you very much for the update. What was our response rate in 2017 to the community survey?
We had about 1,200 responses. So I'm not claiming math as my strong suit. I don't know exactly what that percentage is, but I think it got sent out to 4,700 altogether.
So what's our expectation this time? I mean, to increase the response rate?
I hope that with the 3 years since we can up the electronic, it's less, I think it's more normalized now. And I think we even saw it with the census where we're, 5% ahead of where we were in 2010. So hopefully by pushing out through our communication online and being able to tell people to complete the survey electronically, I hope that we can be able to encourage a higher response rate. I think we will be able to, just because it is a little bit more normalized, and we have a little bit stronger communication channel with our
And
residents.
we didn't have Ready Rochester before, so I'm sure we're going to utilize that avenue as well, correct?
Yes, we will be able to, and if I can also add too, in '09, we actually did it wasn't a community survey, it was more of a targeted, so there was just a smaller sample of the community. 3 years ago, we actually did mail it to all the households, and that's what we'll be doing again this time. And the math, if I remember correctly from 3 years ago, we were in, I want to say, around the 26%, which as Drew was going through to get his master's, noted anything above, I think 22% was statistically significant for the factors that we were gathering. So anything above 25, if we can get in that 25 to 30 or low 30s, I think that would be excellent. We learned a few things last time going through this process. And again, we did not have the ability to do the Ready Rochester way to communicate with residents through email, text, and phone.
Thank you.
Councilmember Salvia.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the update, Jane. Appreciate it. If council has some recommendations on some additional questions, should we just email those to you? I know there's value to having consistency of questions so you can see trends. However, we've heard comments from residents around trees and the importance of trees in our community. We've just spent a lot of time on the tree ordinance. So I think maybe we want to get some feedback around that, as well as possibly the community house, Dinosaur Hill, as well as I think it would be good to have some area for residents to voice whether their voices are being heard. Is City Hall and City Council open to their thoughts and feedback? I've seen that on some other surveys. So I'll shoot those over to you, but thank you for the update.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Well, Councilmember Salvia took my first part of my comments, which I agree wholeheartedly, and I had some thoughts on that also. I just had a question on page 5. There's questions that sort of jumped out at me. Would you pay $1 a day to be used directly for the Rochester water system and the Rochester road system? So, I'm not a math major, but that's $365. We've just gone through this whole water study with Raf Tillis. I don't know if that question or those questions, if what the intent of those are to me, I don't want to predict what the responses would be, but after the water bills we just got and the dozen people that have stopped me in the city, in the downtown and in my neighborhood while cutting my lawn, I'm not sure I'm going to put a question about water in there. And again, with the roads. So I didn't know what the intent of those two questions were. Maybe they were on the 2009 and 2017 have continued over. But in my comments, as Councilmember Salvia, I would take those out and reword that, because to me, I'm going, okay, I'm just paid my $600 water bill and I'm going to pay another $365 divided by 4. I'm not sure you're going to get a lot of yeses on those questions. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, and I could add a little context. So last time in 2017, that's when the then council was looking at the infrastructure and ongoing fee structure for the water and sewer. That was a specific one then, and that's kind of the sort of questions that we're trying to actually gather from council to see if there's, something like the tree ordinance has been, very hot. Again, just as council person Salvia just noted, Dinosaur Hill, feedback and some other things. So we've had in the past these probably 5 to 10 questions that have been very specific and timely.
Very good. Further questions? Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, just how much is that going to cost us to mail out? And only reason, really, the concern of that is knowing whether or not they're actually going to be delivered.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be delivered. Jane?
I know, but mail is not being delivered timely. And I don't know what type of deadline we're having on the survey, et cetera, to be able to do something with. But I'd hate to see us waste the money of mailing everything out if, people are going to say, well, I never received it. And is that actually covering every household in all of Rochester and every apartment and everybody here?
Jane?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Peterson. It is covering every apartment, household. So we are working with the printer who handles our newsletter to take the batch list that the Postal Service creates for mass mailings, so that it's not based off of water bills or water services or something else. It's the mailing addresses in our city. So estimating it based off of the prepaid postage and then the cost of our newsletter being sent out and postage for that, I believe it should be around, this is a very, very rough estimate, 5,000, which is what I had listed in my community communications budget at the beginning of the fiscal year. So it was kind of capped into that whole program as well. Like I said, a very rough budget, as we're just in the preliminary stages of planning and working with our mailer and printer to get the whole finalized price, which I will be updating council on before it goes out. Additionally, with the concerns about the mail delivery, with it being sent out in December and then closing in February, that should give them, 2.5 months to complete it by mail. And then with other forms of communication going out, the newsletter, and then online as well, electronically, all of our communication channels. If someone has an issue and doesn't receive their survey, we have a tracking system and are able to, no one's going to feel left out. We'll either be able to get them a new code so they can do it online, or we can send them a new survey with a new code. However, they choose, there's stopgaps to make sure that we can kind of address that issue as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jane. Good luck with that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next is the DTE streetlight conversion project. Your city manager.
Yeah, Anthony has been continuing to oversee our light conversions with the LEDs. So Anthony, if you want to provide the overall update.
Sure thing. Happy to. If council remembers, we've had 2 rounds, 2 phases so far for the LED conversions. Started with City Hall and tennis lights. Second was the rest of the municipal buildings and services that we pay DTE for. The final phase is the street lights to be converted to LED. DTE, as lights are getting broken, burned out, they're replacing them with these lights. But DTE has a limited budget and a very large area that they do the program for. So the city will continue to pay the regular high electric cost usages on those old high pressure sodium lights until they essentially get replaced by DTE. So the program DTE started is said, hey, if you want to get this sped up, you can front load the cost and purchase it. And for the city, it'd be $73,449. We would then prioritize your replacements up front. What that means to the city is you have an initial outlay of $73,000, and by DTE's calculations, and they have the numbers are very good for as far as the payback period. They know how much the lights run. They know how much electricity that each one is using. They're the experts in that one. They're telling us that our payback is over $45,000 per year, which means that once the project would be completed, a little over 1.38 years, and that initial cost would be paid for, and then we'd have that $45,000 plus any incremental rate hikes would be shaved off from that as well, being LED each year going forward. So happy to answer any questions council has on that.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Thank you, Anthony. And as you presented the prior DTE lighting request, this one also makes sense. We're looking into the future, and with a 1.4 year ROI, I fully support this as you presented to, again, the Budget and Expense Committee a few weeks ago. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the street light LED conversion project in the amount of $73,449.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Albrecht, support by Councilperson Harrison. Discussion? Councilperson Harrison, do you have anything else?
I was going to make the same motion, so I'll support Councilmember Albrecht.
Okay, Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So Anthony, thank you for this question. Is this going to replace all the ones on all the bulbs in the DDA area as well? So it's all of the city?
It does not. The ones in the DDA are being replaced as part of their program with LED as they go. So this will take care of everything that the city has left that we pay DTE for lighting. So everything else is LED, and that would be the remaining one. And then I'd leave that to Christy to answer what the schedule is for those lights.
Is Christy still on at the moment, or I can?
Yes.
Here.
Yes, she is.
Oh, hi. So, question, I was just curious because I know we can't finish them all up right away while this is going on. How long do you think it would take us to take care of the rest of them in the DDA?
I think at the certain pace that we're at right now, it would be about 3 budget cycles to get through them. We did finish all of the hook and bells in our last replacement, so we're just working on acorns now.
All right, and then, but those ones have all had the LEDs put in them?
Yes, we started with the hook and bells back at Main Street Makeover back in 2012. Those were all retrofitted to LED, and then all the new ones have LED in them as well. So,
okay, so I guess DT is not here, but the question would be, how are we going to distinguish between those with the LED conversion and the regular ones until they're all done to really know where the savings is coming in at?
when I don't know.
Yeah, I know. So
Yeah, I can take a stab at that one. So each single section, if you will, has a different master meter to it. So each street light is not in and of itself having its own meter. There may be 20, 30 lights that are on a single meter. What I've seen already, because I've looked at the bills from the conversion, once we got 1 full month, we've seen, like City Hall, for example, almost 21% reduction in electricity usage once we converted. Obviously, it's not higher. We have computers we're running, we have other electricity uses than just lighting, but we saw very significant, and that follows suit with the other changes we've seen from the fire station to the parks building. We've seen that similar decrease as well. So that's kind of after it's done, you see the savings sort of thing, and you can actually see on the bill how much the decrease is each time.
okay, so are they going to be replacing them per what's on the meter? So like they're going to do all those that are on the 1 meter when they do them, or are they just going through and randomly doing them?
For the street lights,
Yeah.
those it will be all done in a 3-week period.
Okay.
So if council approves, we then write a check for the $73,000 and give it to DTE. Once they have the physical money, that's when they put you in the project queue. They already have the quantities, the types. They did all of that inventory already. They will then give us a date, and then we'll know exactly when it will be. Not anticipating it to be this fall, just because it's getting so late in the year, but it probably will be early spring. They then will go and replace them all at once. There isn't a phase in. Once our time comes, the crew, they come to town and they start hitting every single one of them until they complete the project. Brandon from DTE, roughly, might be even 2 weeks, but 2 to 3 weeks ish. There may be some snags here and there, but then they'll all be replaced. So within a cycle, you'll have them all replaced, and then the full month after that, we'll then be able to see what the impact is to that.
Okay. All right, but that's the only cost. We'll never have to pay anything else for these to be done except when they have to be replaced down the line?
DTE has to, by the agreement, cover any maintenance and replacements for 5 years. After the 5 years, they may still continue to cover it, but they're not obligated to cover any replacements after the 5 years.
All right.
So other than that, that's it. It's just electricity costs. And the reason this one's a little bit different than the city-owned buildings is DTE owns them. They're DTE's lights essentially. Where at the city and the city buildings, there are light bulbs. If they burn out, we have to replace them. So it's a little different just from that angle. But we're good for at least the 5-year period, and they may go longer than that, but that's up to DTE at that point.
Well, knowing the amount, sorry, Mayor, knowing that the amount of lights that we have that will be replaced, if they were to quit doing that and we needed to pay for them, are we going to ever have to pay for them at that cost? Because they're not cheap.
Correct. Once, let's say we have to replace them at that point, the fixtures are already all in place. It is just the light bulb itself, the light unit, because the poles are, the new lines are already run, the guts, if you will, inside the different lights and the poles, that's already all going to be all LED converted. So the only part then that has to be replaced is the actual either light bulb or the actual interior part of the fixture on the larger lights. That would be it. So even the cost would be less on those replacements after 5 years. And it's much less than what the initial outlay is on the bulb replacements.
So they really don't have, since they're all about conserving energy, they really don't have any grant programs or anything to help municipalities with something like this?
Yes, they do. Once this is done, we'll be eligible for a little over 11,000 in following their LED rebate program. So they don't give it on the upfront. They wait until you have completed the project, then you get the check back. So the net cost to the city is $62,000. $62,000 after that rebate comes back.
All right. Well, thanks for answering that for the residents.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Salvia.
Thank you. Thank you. Finance Director Maggio answered some of this question, but just to clarify, by doing this, we're basically pulling ahead this project, kind of putting ourselves at the front of the line to get these LED bulbs implemented. But I didn't see anything in the contract that kind of guarantees that they're going to do it in any set amount of time. They're looking at, spring. What if they decide that it could take them 5 years before they get around to taking care of Rochester? Do we have any commitments, or should there be anything in the contract to make sure this happens since we're paying this money?
Sure. So Brandon is the coordinator for this project for DTE, and that came directly from him. He said as soon as we get it, if it was, say, a month ago, he said I would get you in this fall. I had talked with him about a week and a half ago and asked him, if we get you the check, what's the timeline? And he's like, probably going to be early spring right now, because we don't think with the weather we're going to be able to fit you in the fall time. So there's not anything in writing saying that, you give us the check and it will be April 15th through April 28th. But talking with the program coordinator, that there's no reason or anything even mentioned that it's going to be 5 years or 4. We're going to be right in the queue, because that whole division is doing nothing but LED light replacements. So that's what they're constantly doing. For other municipalities that are doing this and other programs, they're just going nonstop with it, and that's all they do is change out the LED, change out the bulbs to the LED lights.
So we're just taking DTE's word on it. Is that what you're saying?
On the timing, that'd be correct. I'm more than happy to talk with Brandon and say, if council approves, to say, hey, I need an actual date. We have the approval. I can't give you the check until you give me a date. I'm happy to hold that check hostage.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I concur with Councilmember Salvia's sentiments here. So is there any way we can memorialize in the agreement with DTE a timing factor as we write them the check, and then, it's kind of on the if come and their good grace, as to when this would be implemented. So is there a way to revise the document, the agreement, to where there is a timing function formally accepted between the two parties?
Anthony, or maybe Attorney Crock?
Yeah, as on the legal side, I'll have to defer to Crot on that one, but I think if there's an acceptable date the council would have in mind, let's say we'd want it done by mid-June. I would communicate that with Brandon to say, is it possible to be done by mid-June or whatever the date would be? And if not, then what would the date be, and come back to council? Or then if he says yes, that'd be fine, then have the check sent. But
City Attorney?
I mean, we could ask for anything, right? I mean, I think that to tie to Anthony's point, I mean, if you said to DTE, we want it this fiscal year, or you wanted it within by the end of the second quarter, you know, those are easy benchmarks for them to say, oh yeah, we can meet that. And you know, they may not want to touch this master agreement, the language, because we tried to tweak it around the edges a little bit, and they're hesitant to that. But I think Anthony could probably get a commitment from our local person in a writing saying, if you pay it, you know, now, we will have these installed by end of, you know, second quarter or this fiscal year, however city council wishes to phrase that. So I think that's if we're going to be first in the queue, or, you know, early in the queue, I can't see them not putting that in writing for us. It may not be in their particular master agreement because they send that out to others, but I think Anthony could probably get that commitment.
yep, absolutely, happy to. Yeah, end of the fiscal year, if that's a.
Yeah, that sounds. Nod of the head. Okay. Make that happen if you can, Anthony.
If it goes through and approved, absolutely.
We need a vote.
Right.
Wait. So we're gonna approve. We've made a motion. We're gonna approve writing a check for $74,000 to DTE, but yet we don't have any assurance that they're going to meet any kind of timing that we've actually asked for. So, do we want to amend the motion, or are we voting on the motion as stated?
Who made the motion?
I did.
Councilman Albrecht, do you want to amend it?
If Attorney Crock thinks it needs to be amended, I will amend it.
I think if that's the intent of city council to give Anthony marching order on that you could change it to a motion to amend, or to motion to approve the contract with assurance in writing from DTE that this installation will be this fiscal year. I think that would be a good amendment to that motion.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the streetlight LED conversion project in the amount of $73,449 with a written agreement with DTE that the work will be completed no later than the end of this fiscal year.
Support.
Very good. And then support by Councilmember Harrison.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Good luck on that, Anthony. Next is a discussion of Halloween 2020. I asked the city manager to put this on the agenda because I have had a number of people ask me. I think other council people have had people ask them what's going on with Halloween this year. So I think council should have a discussion on that. Mr. City Manager, do you want to give a little background?
Yeah. So in everybody's packet, and for those watching, again, our agenda packets are available on the city's website. In the packet on page 44, there's some basic information, which includes the updated CDC guidelines for Halloween, as well as other holidays that are coming up. They list for the Halloween holiday specifically kind of a low, moderate, and high risk activities. In addition, we've kind of made I guess, an informal survey through the managers and other associations to see what other communities are doing. And the majority have actually, created something that they've posted on their website saying that, that city is not sanctioning Halloween because it's really, a nationally recognized holiday. Other than really basically announcing or suggesting certain hours, the city really has no further involvement. So I've kind of also gathered, and I'd be happy to share, when mayor or council feels appropriate, some suggested kind of guidelines if, council chooses to move forward, and some practical advice about how to safely hand out candy.
Yeah, I mean, I had some people, are we going to have the sirens go off? Are we going to have certain times? Are we going to say you shouldn't do it? Are we going to say you should do it? Are we not going to say anything at all? I guess that's what I think council should discuss. Councilmember Peterson, you want to start?
I actually think that we should, if our Chief Schettenhelm believes that there's really not a problem doing so. I don't want to restrict people from making their own decision to do that. I think that if we were to announce, if we are going to do that, it needs to be announced, and we do need to have the sirens as normal. The timing that was approved last year for that, I think should stay with that, because it's been it was a new tradition started to be in sync with other communities. So in case they do, everyone's on the same page. And I think that we need to keep the children out there enjoying themselves. People don't want to participate, they just won't.
Does the chief have a comment to that?
Chief Schettenhelm?
Sure, I think it's would be up to the city to provide as much information as possible, and then to allow those people to make an individual decision, both on both sides of the equation, whether they want to be the person that is going to hand out prepackaged, personally bagged items, or if you're going to be the person that wants to take your children door to door. But I think it's our responsibility to provide the information and then have people make an informed personal decision what's best for them and their family.
Yep.
Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. I see it being valuable to share information about how to trick or treat safely and the recommendations from the CDC. I think we should be pushing that out. But do you think it's important that we, I guess, sponsor or support trick or treating by setting designated times and by having, the siren go off? Is that safer, or is that us promoting trick or treating? And I guess I defer to the chief on this one.
Chief, you have an opinion?
Well, I think it's probably not a bad idea to at least designate the siren to try to advise people of, as we have traditionally, of when it's the time to trick or treat. And then the information that we're sharing is just how to do that safely, based on what the experts are telling us.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree. I think communication is the key to this. And however we formalize this or support it, we should also make it very clear to the residents of Rochester that the CDC has declared the highest risk activity, the number one, is participating in traditional trick-or-treating where treats are handed to children who go door to door. We should make that known to all residents so they can make their own informed choice for their family. I guess I'm going to struggle with actually blowing the siren. Let's let every family decide what's best for them and their children. But they should have the information. We can provide recommendations, certainly, but they should also have the recommendations from the CDC to where they can then read that and make their own informed decision.
Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
And I was just going to say exactly what Councilmember Sage said, so no need to repeat it. But that's how it's my position on this as well. Thanks.
Councilmember Peterson again.
Thank you. I do believe, though, that as the chief stated as well, that the siren was the indicator, so people knew when it would start and end for those that do want to. But I would like us to be very consistent with the choices we make right now on everything, because we also have other events that are on the agenda, coming up for, Halloween type events. And I don't want us to bog down one event when you're not doing the same with the other events. So I think that's where we need to, as a council, make sure that we look at all these events, what they're going to do, because, we did not give that much scrutiny to the Halloween haunted house at all. And I felt that was going inside something and not just having something handed to them, because they are handed something anytime they go to a fast food, to a store, anywhere. And I don't think that we're being, very mindful of keeping this straight across the board. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Anything further? Jane, you had a question, comment?
I received a public comment from a resident who was unable to attend the meeting because she is attending the Rochester Community Schools Board meeting. I could read that into the record now, if that would be okay with you, Mayor.
Okay.
She says, I hope the Rochester City Board will make it a choice for citizens to participate with Halloween / trick-or-treating. There are cider mills open, Rochester Farmers Market, and a number of other events, new activities that have just been approved to open by Governor Whitmer. I understand there may be some families who do not want to participate in Halloween activities, and that is their choice. However, I believe that those who want to participate in Halloween should be able to. I believe in past years, Rochester trick-or-treating has been from 7 to 8 p.m. and Rochester Hills has been from 6 to 8 p.m. For those families that can, especially for younger children, the 6 to 8 p.m. probably works best. That was from Rosemary Polluck.
Councilmember Salvia.
Thank you. Just also wanted to comment as a reminder, Halloween this year is on a Saturday. So just keep that in mind. It's a Saturday, so there can be daytime activities as well. Like I know some of the neighborhoods, do costume parades and things like that. And I think that's a great way to celebrate as well and encourage those kind of smaller group events. And I think it's important that people have a choice, but that we clearly communicate what the CDC states is. It's like going to a restaurant. It's viewed as high risk. Restaurants are open and you can go in, but you do know that's a higher risk. So similar with trick-or-treating.
I would just like to say for my part, I agree with that. It should be individual people should have their own choices. I think we should send out the CDC information. I guess I agree with Councilmember Sage. I don't think we should be blowing the siren. This is a high risk thing, so I don't think we should be promoting it like that. Just my opinion. Anybody else? Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, and I think that we're just doing a disservice to our citizens if we don't, because that was what we have always done. And so they knew that was the time to do it. So if we're going to do trick or treat at all, I think we need to stay in sync with what we've always done for the timing of everything, which we did approve last year to go from 6 to 8 to be like the other communities nearby, and that we do the siren so the children know when to go to a house and when not to go to a house.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think I agree with Councilmember Peterson. We should communicate that alongside the other guidelines that are given to us by the government, so that everybody can make the appropriate decision for their family. I have no problem with trick or treat occurring, but again, it's a personal choice for a family. And we should provide that information to them on the website. And I'd be very curious. Hopefully we could review that type of communication prior to the actual event. Maybe that's something that we could all review at the next council meeting.
Okay. Mr. Manager, can you bring that to the next meeting?
Yep, happy to add it. I know we're continuing to get calls, I guess between now and, 2 weeks from now. But I think if we know that there's at least going to be the trick or treating, the CDC guidelines are there. Some of that information can, the very generic component we can put there. And then if council's okay, and then for, I guess, a little bit more of the in-depth stuff, sharing it with council.
Yep, that sounds good. Anything further on this subject? Okay. What's that?
Are we voting on this?
I don't think so. There's not a motion, is there?
There is not, Your Honor.
Well, I think that we need to have a motion made whether or not we are supporting this or not, so the public knows. And that it would, go along with all the CDC guidelines and what we're going to do.
Well, I was hoping that possibly that discussion at the October 12th meeting where we could truly formalize all the actions, unless there is a motion on the floor here with details specific to the event and how we would communicate it.
Well, and I question for city manager then, because of the alerting everyone, are we able to use the Ready Rochester to go ahead and do that as well then? So those who are signed up can get that, and it can actually be another avenue of advertising.
It is. It's a tool for both emergency alerts and community notifications. So this would fall underneath the community notification.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion then, Mayor, right now that we move to allow Halloween to take place per the government guidelines, to follow the government guidelines to that. The hours would be from 6 to 8 on Halloween, and that the fire department will do the siren to alert those of the event.
Is there a second? Councilmember Sage?
Can I offer a friendly amendment to that motion?
Sure can.
That there will be a detailed communication from the city regarding this motion and every action pertaining to it. I'm struggling with those specifics other than 6 to 8 and the siren going off.
Well, I understand that, and I'm fine with that friendly amendment. I do know that the CDC Halloween guidelines are pretty clear, and other entities, as I said earlier, that have submitted things regarding Halloween have a very clear laid out, agenda item of how they're going to handle it as well for the COVID-19. So I just think that it would help if we could get something out sooner rather than later. So if you're fine with that, I'm fine with that.
So Councilmember Sage, what's your second?
I'm satisfied with Councilmember Peterson's response.
And I'll support the motion. I'll second the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson, support by Councilmember Salvia. Discussion, Councilmember Harrison.
I don't know that we need to be promoting Halloween by setting these specific times and having, the horns go off. I think that people are free to do what they please on their own, subdivisions or communities on that sort of a basis. So I don't know that we, aside from putting out how to do this safely per the CDC guidelines, I don't know that we need to be promoting a high risk activity from the CDC through our city. So I'm not going to support this.
Okay, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Okay. Vixen,
No.
Bavacqua,
No.
Albrecht,
No.
Harrison,
No.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
No.
Salvia.
Yes.
Okay.
5-2, Your Honor, the motion failed.
Okay. So Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a follow-up, I still would like some kind of a discussion on the October 12th agenda with the purpose of establishing the communication that we will send out to the residents so that they understand Halloween will occur and in whatever form that takes.
Councilmember Albrecht.
I just want to support Councilmember Sage. I'd like to give city administration the ability to get all our thoughts tonight. I support us doing something. I just felt it was a bit premature tonight. And in 2 weeks when we meet, it'll still be 3 weeks before Halloween, and we can have a well thought out, discussed plan to communicate to our residents. Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Peterson.
Like I said, if we don't stay consistent, we look really bad. We've allowed so many other things that are being allowed to be done that without a question or a concern. And I don't know why we cannot, and why certain things are being made more of an issue. So very disappointed. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll look for your report at the next meeting, Mr. City Manager.
Yep, understood.
Okay, next on to the DPW campus update. Sandy, welcome.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Yes,
Here
sir.
again with our monthly campus update, and I'm going to share my screen with the basic presentation. As you know, our campus is, oh, sorry, hold on. Here it goes. We are well underway on our construction project. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch this project go from concept to near completion. Our building, this picture was just taken today with the beautiful rain on our pavement here. I'm happy to report that to date, our campus renovation project has totaled $4.4 million. And with that, we have gotten our new public administration building, which includes a functional lunchroom, a kitchenette for our staff, locker rooms, showers, all for the health and safety of our staff. We've also retrofitted our garages for a safer and more efficient mechanics area. That portion of our project is just getting finished up here in the next month. And we've created indoor storage and parking areas where we can better protect our city assets and vehicles. That also includes the wash bay, where we'll be able to take care of those vehicles even more efficiently. We have our new fueling station that all of the departments are using. And we've also created the ecology drop-off center for our residents to be able to bring their metals and trash to our center. So of the initial $5.3 million bond balance or bond that we initially had, we have nearly $900,000 left in that bond. Again, our project is not complete yet. However, we are nearing its completion and we do not anticipate any large expenditures at this point. So again, this is our picture from today of the administration building as it stands. On Wednesday, they're going to be doing one of our final cleanups on the building. And we fully expect that in early October, which this week is October 1st, we may very well get to begin moving our furniture in. So we're very excited and it's really taken shape and it's just a beautiful building inside, as you can see. These are countertops. It does have a protective coating on it right now, so there's not actual dots on the countertop, but this is the reception area for our residents. We shortly will be having the COVID plexiglass screen put up to protect both sides. And in the lobby, this is what it looks like from the other side with the accent wall and the interior. Again, our hallways are with the polished concrete, the accent walls, paint, drywall, everything has been completed in there. They're just doing some final cleanup work. Our salt barn has been finished. It now has a concrete platform out front. Our door's been moved for better accessibility for filling and retrieving, as well as better weather protection of our salt. So it's no longer west facing where the storms would hit our salt. Our fueling station, along with our brand new pavement and asphalt that was completed this weekend, and our ecology drop-off center has also been completed. So there's a retaining wall. This is the platform that residents will use to go out. There'll be dumpsters located on either side of this as we get the site cleaned up and we then contract to bring those in. This is the site today again that we've completed that asphalt, and as we look at that, our bond expenses, we have engineering, construction, and contingencies as outlined in the memo that was with the packet. And we've had the cost for the fueling station, IT, fiber equipment, and so forth. So to date, our total DPW bond costs were $4.4 million and just over that for the total all-in project cost. To date, there are no items pending approval, and per the council's request, any furniture request in the future would be requested to be paid out of the general fund, not out of our bond expenses. But at this time, we do not have any request for that. We are doing our best to reuse the furniture that we have. So all in all, our bond summary, we did take out just over $5.3 million. And once we've paid our legal fees and we include the interest earned minus out our bond costs for the DPW project, that leaves just shy of $900,000 that can be utilized by council if desired. Our administration building, again, we're looking at having our occupancy before early October, which is this week or next week, with the substantial project completion by the end of the calendar year. I have been told lately that that may be moved up. We may actually be seeing the project completed in early December at this point. We just need to finish the two garage retrofitting. Our ribbon cutting ceremony is due to be in October. I believe Jane is putting that together, and that will be released soon with the formal date. So as always, I thank you on behalf of the DPW, I thank all of you for your consideration of the campus and oh, I can't get off my screens. But I thank you for your consideration of our campus and the upgrades that you've given to us.
Thank you. Any questions for Sandy? Councilmember Peterson.
No, just a comment. I want to thank you, Sandy, and the DPW and Frank Rewald and Sons for working so hard to put together one of the most amazing asset for the community. So long time overdue, like many, many, many years, but it looks awesome.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Very good. Next is item F, is the City Council appointment of a member to the Downtown Development Authority. Councilmember Peterson.
Well, I am not in favor of that appointment, only because of the fact that that person has dealings with the city already. I don't like that conflict right there. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Albrecht.
Yes, again, I'm new to the process, and I know that this is an appointment, and again, that the mayor makes. I've had my notes from one of the meetings before, and there were 2 names, the one that is on the Eric Diana, and then a Don Sinkowitz. I did request, and Jane did send me the application for Eric Diana. I was on DDA for 10 years, so I'm very passionate about who goes on the DDA. So again, I would want more transparency if that's the case. And I don't know if Leanne sends that out or Jane sends it out, so that we've got an opening on DDA. Here's 2 candidates. Again, we could give our feedback to the mayor if appropriate, so that we could have a more transparent, thoughtful discussion on this. Again, I only got the application a couple 3 days ago when I requested that from Blaine and Jane. So again, I'm hoping to see more transparency on the process, so we could see applications and then, discuss where the right fit would be. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the mayor's current nominee, Eric Diana.
Motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Their support.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Sage. Further discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
No.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
No.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. Can have conflicts and still get appointed to stuff.
I'm sorry, was that commentary on a motion?
Yeah.
Commentary on a vote? I'm sorry.
Yep, I'm allowed to do so.
Point of order, sir.
Yeah, you have to be called upon, Councilmember Peterson.
Okay.
I'd just like to say also that the other The other nominee is currently a liaison on the DDA. So he is there currently. Okay, next is consideration of the special event application from the PSD to hold 2020 Kris Kringle Market on Friday, December 4th and Saturday, December 5th on the top of the east parking deck.
Mayor, I don't know if you want me to lead or if you want to Shuttenhelm or.
Christy, why don't you lead?
Sure. So Kris Kringle Market, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, that is an event that we would like to pursue. Being a market format concept, it's very similar to what we've already been executing this summer for the farmers market and the Thursday night market, where we have one single point of entry and exit. We have volunteers, and in the case of the farmers market, my staff at the main entrance that are clicking people in. We have worked with both the fire and police chiefs to make sure that we know what our capacity numbers are of both our visitors as well as our vendors, so that we don't exceed that number. We hold the line when we need to, and then allow people to leave, and then allow more people to come in. And we've had great success with that over those two events. For the Kris Kringle Market, as you know, typically it's held on West 4th Street, and it does get narrow in there, especially in the evenings, because it's a pretty popular event. So to execute this event appropriately and safely in this environment, we would propose to move it to the top level of the east parking platform where we held the Thursday night market this year, and we actually had a lot of positive comments about how nicely spaced out it was. One of the main, in addition to the change of location, the other major change in the event is that in working with Chief Shuttenhelm, we have elected to not have the warming tent. We're not trying to encourage people to gather, much like farmers market and Thursday night, not adding those things to ask people to stop and stay. It's more come, enjoy the market, walk around, and then depart so that more people can come into the market atmosphere. So that is the basic summary of what we were talking about. And then I would just defer to the chief if he wants to add any more color to the discussion.
Chief?
I think that sums up kind of the plan, the things that we've talked about to accommodate concerns in reference to the virus and to try to keep the event as safe as possible.
Thank you. This council. Councilmember Salvia.
So I think maybe I missed you stating this, but there's also no alcohol being served at the Kris Kringle Market.
Correct. Yes, within the warming tent, so there would be no formal food service and no alcohol as have been in the past. We wouldn't be serving cider or anything like that. There would be some booths that do actually still sell food product, but it wouldn't be something that people would be able to sit down and enjoy or anything like that. We won't have a gathering area like we usually do with the warming tent. There may still be some heaters around just to kind of warm the area because it is a bit chilly, but not any formal areas for people to gather or to serve alcohol at any place during the event.
Right.
Unless we move into phase 5.
Well, correct? Interesting. So the new guidelines actually do allow gathering in larger groups. So Steve and I actually spoke about that. That just came into light on Friday. We just spoke about that today. And I don't want to speak for the chief, but I feel like we kind of mutually thought that maybe still not having the warming tent would still be a good idea to not have it. And Steve, would that summarize our discussion?
Yes, one of the concerns with alcohol is that it has to be provided in a table service type of situation. So the way that alcohol is presented traditionally at the Kringle Market would not be able to go on based on the current executive order in relation to alcohol service.
Councilmember Salvia.
Yeah, so to that point, I think it's a very smart decision not to do that, especially in the past that has been served by volunteers. I've been one of those volunteers. And, you know, in this current environment, that's just not an activity that is safe, especially for volunteers. You know, if we approve this event, you know, maybe some of the downtown establishments, maybe they want to have a special on some glue vine or something like that. I know that is a favorite activity regarding to the Kringle Market to go have your mulled wine, and that's a very popular thing. But I think your strategy and the way you presented this is very smart in light of the environment that we're in. Thank you.
And we would be still selling mugs, just not without the glue vine, because I know a lot of people collect the mugs, so we still will have mugs available for sale.
Good.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, Christy, I just want to thank you for working so hard to still keep these events happening in our community. Because it takes somebody like you that is very positive and to put this together. So I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson,
Support.
support by Councilmember Salvia. Discussion, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is a consideration of a special event application from the PSD to hold downtown Halloween Fest on Saturday, October 17th, from 3:30 to 7:30. This event will only be held if our region is in phase 5 of the Michigan Safe Start Plan. If held, the event will be in the farmer's market lot. Christy, pretty clear.
So based on the governor's order on Friday, the gathering guidelines are actually more favorable than phase 5. So in speaking with Chief Schettenhelm today, we discussed this event as well. And again, referencing the CDC guidelines, it is a higher risk activity. But if I could just summarize what we're talking about and then get council's input on this. Typically, downtown trick or treat is something that we do a couple Saturdays in advance of traditional trick or treat on Halloween. We usually, unfortunately, this is the year I'm saying unfortunately, we usually get over 1,000 kids downtown over a 90-minute period, which sounds really great unless you're in 2020. So we can't do the trick or treat and we can't do the costume parade, which puts everybody together and walks them down the street. But one thing, as we were talking about at both the DDA and PSD, both boards felt strongly that they wanted to be able to offer something to the community to do. And so last year we had done something at the end of the Halloween costume parade called our Halloween Fest, where we had inflatable blow up Halloween photo spots. We had a little pumpkin patch where we had a sponsor that actually people could come and pick up just a small little pumpkin for free. We had a couple food trucks out there. We had the Metro Detroit Ghostbusters, just, say hi to people, taking some photos, which we would still do some social distance selfies, things like that. But we really wanted to, we think that we could safely pull something off again using the farmers market model where we block the stairways, only have one way in, one way out, volunteers counting people in, working with the two chiefs on how many people is appropriate and what we was allowed to have into the market. I mean, we certainly, I know from the square footage, we could have a lot more people than I think we might be comfortable with at any one time. So we'd want to really monitor that. We were even talking about not, of course, having any kind of, trick-or-treating or candy or anything, but maybe one of the things we always do at events are crafts, maybe having already pre-bagged a make and take Halloween craft that they could take home with them and do it at home. So the kids still get to have a little bit of something. But we were just trying to find some way that we could still allow the kids to celebrate and have a little bit of joy for Halloween. This is a way that we felt that we could do it safely in a social distance responsible manner. And so we're here for your consideration.
Very good. Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve that because if we're not going to have Halloween, they need something.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Sage. Discussion?
I have a question. And so we're going to encourage costumes because to me, the most important thing is having the place where the kids can wear their costumes.
Yeah, definitely.
Councilmember Harrison?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, I was looking at the CDC guidelines earlier today, what's categorized as high risk. And I guess I wasn't clear on what would be involved, what puts this event in the high risk category. If they're taking things and leaving or there are multiple, I guess I'm not sure.
So nothing like what we're doing, of course, is really defined in the mid-range of where they call it moderate risk activities, talking about an open air event, attending a costume party held outdoors, where people can remain 6 feet apart. That's kind of what I was using. I'm sitting here looking at the guidelines on my phone right now. Those were somewhere I was kind of looking at where it would be similar to what we're doing because there really wasn't anything exactly what we're doing. So it is a moderate risk activity. It's not in the high risk category since we're not going to be trick or treating or doing some of the other things, but it is moderate.
Councilmember Sage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Christy, this also then follows the same farmers market model that we're using successfully so far. So it would, and farmers market would be considered a moderate risk, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so this would still fall within those guidelines to where we're going to be limiting the amount of people. We're still going to be socially distancing. We're going to be, okay.
Anything further? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is I is consideration of a special event application from Rah to hold a trunk or treat event in their parking lot on Friday, October 9th from 6 to 8:30. Councilmember Albrecht.
Thank you, Mayor. In speaking with the Rah administration, and I know Michaela, who runs these kinds of programs, has been working with Chief Schettenhelm. I'd like to make a motion to, similar to the last two things we've talked about, to approve the Rah Trunk or Treat event that is submitted for Friday, October 9th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. The information in your packet includes, Michaela did a real good job of outlining the procedures for trunk or treat. I know she worked with the police chief, so I will support this.
Motion by Councilmember Albrecht. Their support.
Support. Question.
By Councilmember Peterson. Comment from Councilperson Harrison.
Thank you. I'm really hitting this issue hard tonight. Thank you for accommodating me. So the trunk or treating is also in the high risk category, but it looked like from the plan there were many protocols that make it a little bit different than I think what a traditional trunk or treat would be. Will you just touch, Councilmember Albrecht, on some of the highlights that make it different from this high risk activity?
Thank you, Councilmember Harrison. Yeah, on pages 70 and 71 of the packet, Michaela and the administration laid out a lot of the items that they did as precautionary measures. All participants will have to turn in COVID-19 waiver and 14-day pre-screen forms. They're going to, there was a map included that showed where cars would be so that there's 6-foot distancing included. No water, bottles, food, or equipment may be shared between individuals. Again, this is providing, goes on for a couple pages, and it's following many of the CDC guidelines and beyond that. So trick-or-treaters will be asked to wait 6 feet behind the person in front of them if a backup occurs. We will have administration there from Rah to ensure that all these things are being followed. And it sounds counterintuitive, but it'll be a confined area, even though it's outside. It'll be, where people can move from trunk to trunk. In fact, we are doing this at my company in lieu of our annual Halloween, get together in the building. We're going to have cars spaced out in our parking lot. So I hope that addresses your questions, Amanda. Councilmember Harrison. Sorry.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with Councilmember Albrecht. I do appreciate the detail that went into Rah-Rah's procedures for trunk or treat. So I can support this event with the caveat that it will be communicated to all the citizens equally as we are going to communicate formal Halloween trick or treating. So in this case, we should reassure the citizens that all these guidelines are being taken for this event and make sure that that is publicly known so that they have a feeling of assurance that it is a safe event to attend. So I guess I'm asking for city administration support and backing in communicating this event, particular to the guidelines that were established, the procedures established by Rah regarding trunk or treat.
Mayor, I'm happy to include those as well as the CDC. So, on the city's website. And if it's council's desire to also use our communication software to do that, I'm happy to do that as well.
Councilmember Harrison.
Would those communications be the responsibility, though, of RARA? Because this wouldn't particularly be a city-sponsored event, but rather a RARA-sponsored event.
If I could just add to that, I believe there should be somebody from RARA on the call as well. But this is a ticketed type of event where people are signing up on their website, and so they'll be able to exchange that information with the actual participants rather than us as a city being involved in taking particular measures for this one event as opposed to any other event that could be occurring throughout the area over the succeeding weeks.
I agree.
Me too.
Further discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Thank you. Next is a consideration of special event application from RARA to hold the RARA Craft and Vendor Show in their parking lot on Saturday, November 21st, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Councilmember Albrecht.
Councilmember Peterson had her hand up first, so I'll defer to her.
Councilmember Peterson.
Oh, no problem. I was just going to make a motion to approve it. They did the same thing with this one to make it all, all the guidelines there.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson, support by Councilmember Albrecht. Discussion. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. On to reports of various boards and commission. First, receive a report from the Paint Creek Trailways Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the update from the last meeting was that the Trailway Commission and Dillman and Upton came to an agreement as well. Dillman and Upton then requested permitting to repair the fence along the Paint Creek Trail. And Nick, I don't know if there's any update with regard to any timing, but I thought it was progressing to where I know they had indicated they wanted to get it handled as quickly as possible.
Agree. I mean, I'm thinking this fall possibly even, so, yep.
Okay. Perfect. That's the only update, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next on is a report from the Downtown Development Authority Liaison, Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Christy hit on everything that we talked about. We do have a vice chair now, and that is Tony LaPuma. So, and that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. Next is a report from the Zoning Board of Appeals, Assistant City Manager Banda.
Thank you, sir. We had one case, and it's kind of like a broken record the last three meetings. This was for a third sign on the Angot building at 101 South Main. Mr. Angot, the owner of the building, was there, and they have a new tenant they're very proud of, and it's now a multi-tenanted building of three different companies, so they each get a sign. Zoning board granted it, and again encouraged us to modify our zoning ordinance as we are approving these, and we are working right now on a modification to the sign ordinance, which I'll take to the Planning Commission and then ultimately City Council that will address some of these issues that keep coming up with the zoning board that are just from an antiquated ordinance. That's it.
Thank you. Next is a report from the Planning Commission Liaison, Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we had a few items. One of them was St. John's Lutheran Church on University. They had to come back in front of Planning Commission to extend an approval for their portable classrooms that they had in place. They were only supposed to be there for a year, but as you can imagine with COVID and all of the issues that it brings about, they needed an extension, and they're going to be there for at least another year, it sounds like. So they got that extension. The other thing that we discussed was an amendment to a site plan for the coffee house, which is on Walnut Street. They had initially come in front of Planning Commission with request for a pergola on one side of the building. And then, once they got into construction, to kind of balance things out, they added one on the other side. And didn't really change any of the outdoor seating. So that was approved. It looks good. We also had a infill discussion that we're continuing. No actions were taken on that. We just are continuing to have further discussion on the impact of infill development in the city. That's it.
Very good. Next on to new business for referral and miscellaneous. First, we have receipt of the check register report. Mr. City Manager.
Yep, there are 2 check registers that were September 17th and the 24th. And then for the manager's update, I won't steal the clerk's information regarding the absentee ballots. So in the packet on page 96, the one that I do want to note is Nick and I, along with Sienna, did meet with our master planners and spent a good part of a day driving throughout the community. We were socially distanced, different vehicles with our phones on speaker so that we could talk and communicate with each other, and able to point out all of really the attributes of our community, areas that we felt were possibly up for development, projects that were recently done, natural settings where we've had flooding issues, to all kinds of different topics. And then they've been asking us questions. So as we're moving forward with our new master planners for our next master plan, this was a very important function, and we were lucky to have a very nice and sunny day when we did do this. So Nick, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add.
No, I think they kind of recorded it, and then they've been asking questions like City Manager said, and we'll follow up and get them what they need. We're going to keep this thing on track.
Yeah, I was impressed that they brought both a tablet, and they were with a graphical map of our city, as well as they were taking copious notes as well. So they seem to be asking very pointed questions too. So I feel that we did make a good choice. Other than that, we do have closed session tonight, so I know there might be some questions on some of those topics, or afterwards. I'm also available to talk with council members throughout the week on health insurance, as we had a resident who had questions, and I'm already reaching out to her through email to set up a time to talk with her. That's all I have.
Very good. Madam City Clerk.
I'll just end with a really positive note on elections this evening. Today we had a special needs young lady come in to use the ADA accessible voting machine that creates the ballot. And she was able to use that as her absentee ballot. So those moments really make all the work that goes into it worthy, because letting people that wouldn't normally be able to do something like that be able to function like that is it's really rewarding. So that was very nice.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work on this election. I know it's some pretty crazy stuff. Mr. City Attorney.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Albright.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Councilmember Salvia.
Yes, thank you. So the OPC board met this past week and toured the facility and some of the improvements that have been made, as well as some of the safety upgrades that have been put in place for the slow and safe opening of the OPC. In addition to virtual events, there are some classes that you can go into the building now with the recent changes by the governor. So make sure you check the website for those. Also, the guideline changes on Friday affected the community house. So the community house now can reopen safely for some of the nonprofits that have not been able to meet there. The Boy Scouts were able to use the tent out back, but some of the other nonprofits, that didn't work for them. So that also allows some of the events to go on through the Christmas holiday season. So really helpful for those two organizations. And then lastly, I know we all have gotten a lot of emails and comments from residents regarding the riverfront development. And I'm just hoping that there is some way to capture those emails and those residents' thoughts and have them be part of our listening sessions for the master plan, because these are residents who obviously care about the city. They care about zoning in our master plan. So we'd love to engage them in that process. Thank you.
Very good. That's a great idea. Councilmember Sage.
One item this evening, sir, on directed towards possibly City Manager Wing or Jane. On the draft of the fall newsletter under the tree removal permits, the last sentence indicates the new ordinance changes will take effect January 1, 2020. I don't think we backdated the new ordinance retro to the beginning of this year. Hopefully we can make that. I think it's 2021, correct?
Yeah, and thank you for that feedback, Jane. I know is still finalizing, and so that's why we've gotten the draft copy to you guys. When you look at documents like that, sometimes you miss some of those things. So having a fresh set of eyes, we appreciate.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Attorney Crock?
Yeah, so the ordinance isn't delayed in taking effect. It's just the resolution on the fees, on the permit fees. So the ordinance would be effective as soon as 7 days after publication, actually upon publication. So it's just the fees for the tree permit that got pushed to January 1 of 2021.
So we should clarify that last sentence then, saying the ordinance is effective immediately upon publication, that the fees effective as of, okay.
Very good. Yep.
Very good catch, Mr. Councilmember Sage. You have a future as a lawyer or something, potentially. Councilmember Harrison.
Nothing for me tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Nothing from me, thanks.
Councilmember Peterson.
Just one thing. It was brought up with the resident tonight regarding the insurance change, and I received phone calls and things like that regarding it, and a lot of things came to mind. We have been spending a lot of money during COVID, and the points made tonight regarding doing this during a pandemic when people need their insurance the most and things like that, I think is like not a smart idea. I feel really bad that we are not, we gave people hazard pay to take care of them, our employees during this whole entire time, or those that did receive it. And talking about the consistency, we did that, but now, we want to take away something during one of the most crucial times in their lifetime right now, with not knowing really what the, future holds for the medical world when they actually need the benefits that they currently have. So I would just hope that we would take every consideration until we get our city back up and fully functioning, that just goes to the wayside, and we think first about the people that we have employed here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there, Jane, is there another caller who wants to?
Yes. The caller with the last 3 digits, 355, could hit *9 or *6 if they want to make a comment. I have not seen a hand raised.
Okay. Call 355. Do you want to make a comment or not? Doesn't sound like it. So just for an update, as I said before, I know that Randazzo project is very front to everybody's mind. And again, we will not be bringing that to the council unless everything is completed from the developer's standpoint that they were asked to do, and that everybody has at least a week to look at in advance. So, we will keep communicating that. We haven't received anything from them yet. So that's where that is. So that is something we will communicate to everybody as much as we can and as quickly as we can. So I think now we are we need a motion to go into closed session and we will not be returning to open session.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson, support by Councilmember Salvia, to go into closed session without coming back into open session. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Hickson,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes, sorry.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Good, so we'll all sign out and then go and sign back in under the code for the special closed session. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight, and we'll see some people on the other side. All right, thank you.